across all of the the bits of case management that we all use. Yeah. Very much on top of that is overlaying specific features for legal and increasingly insurance, and then increasingly regulatory in probably late 2024. So there's the legal bits on top of it. Now, I'm guessing a good percentage of people on this call are configuring ShareDo day to day, right? Because it's so configurable, it can take some time, to get it right. So the third bit to product, as far as we're concerned, is the solution accelerators, right? So giving you examples, enabling you to download a pack very quickly, and I'll talk a little bit about that during the course of this. And the other thing I wanted to highlight is we, I mean, certainly through 2024 and 2025, and that's about as far as I look ahead, we're going to remain overweight on R&D. What does that mean? It broadly means that a large percentage of our revenue gets spent on innovation, right? And we're going to continue in that vein for the foreseeable. Much to the dismay of Sebastian and the sales and marketing people, it has to be said, but it feels like the right thing to do. Bit of repetition here, so apologies for people who sat on many of these, but I think it's always worth highlighting how we define the roadmap, and certainly with everything, right, we can always get better, right? So 70% of those requests come from you guys, and we'll talk about how the best way of funding those requests, about what's important to you, into the roadmap. And I do appreciate some people have made requests and we don't always get to it super quickly. I need to close the door, sorry, I'm on a speakerphone. I should have done that before I started. Yeah, so I do appreciate that some people have made requests and they're still in the queue. We are catching up on the queue. And the other thing that's what I think is worth noting, and maybe I'll pick on a couple of these, right? So there's been lots of requests about additional document actions. So when you're generating a prep doc, all of the actions that are available, we want more of those. There's often quite a hard dependency between some of these enhancements. For example, PrepDoc is starting to have too much functionality in its current sort of usability container. So I'm aware of all of those enhancements. We are going to get to them, but sometimes we need to look at fundamental UX and maybe restructuring things before we can do them. So they don't get forgotten. I appreciate they do frustrate you if they're really super important, but sometimes there's some dependencies there, and I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about how we prioritize, and broadly it's the same prioritization as a project management triangle, right? We've got quality in one corner, and we've got value, and we've got time, and we're always going to be driven by quality and value. So when we think we've got enough value to release, we'll just release, yeah? So it's been a fair amount of time between 7.5 and 7.6, and hence when we've seen incremental value, we've done quite a few incremental releases, actually probably more than I'd like. But the one thing that we will always slip on if we need to is time. So if we're not happy with quality or there's not about enough value, then we'll move time out. I think ironically, we've probably got quite a lot of value in 7.7 already. So rather than it being 4 months or 3 months or whatever, I suspect 7.7 will come out more quickly. Yeah. Nevertheless, between these point releases, and we're just wrapping up 7.6 now, and we're well into the build for lots of 7.7, then we will be doing these incremental pieces, and they're usually every 3 weeks for customer success, critical tickets, or any security patches, and occasionally a bit more functionality. We are moving on to a major release, so very soon we will be going over to from release 7 to release 8, and hence there's a bit more rigor around that. And the reason we move over to a major release is there's stuff that requires more input from you guys to think about, right? As with any platform, upgrades do take some time. And I guess I'll demo some of the things we've been doing to assist with enabling that upgrade process to always be easy with you. And I'll show some of that because that's come out in 7.6, and you'll see a lot more of what we're currently calling the modular assistant, right? And the final piece is I was laughing at myself actually when I was thinking about this. You know, when Outlook came out with the new version of Outlook, and in the top right-hand corner it says, "Try the new Outlook version." Yeah. Now I pressed the button, and then I was super busy, and it didn't quite have everything I wanted, so I turned it off. Right. And I think, yeah, when people are busy, and all the people using our software are super busy, right? They naturally go, I haven't maybe got time to absorb all of this change. Yeah. So our strategy in terms of product is not to do revolution. We will occasionally, but it's lots of, we call them plus ones, right? Lots and lots and lots of incremental changes that hopefully is not as impactful as when you go, right, try the new Outlook, and I go, whoa, I don't even know where to find stuff, right? So that's enough of a roadmap approach. I mean, throughout all of this, we're going to try and be a bit more interactive, maybe do some polls and stuff like that. But if there are any specific questions, then feel free to post them in the chat. Or if you want to go on mic, then feel free to interrupt me. Yeah, that's all good. Okay, happy days. Let's just look at timeline very quickly. So we're just about to release 7.6. We're on release candidate 4, I think, maybe 5 now. What does that mean? It means if you're desperate for things in a release 7.6, you can deploy it to your vNext environment. You cannot go live on a release candidate. I'm hoping it gets done this week. It might not, but regardless, I don't think it's not going to be deployed to production this side of Christmas. Yeah. There will be a 7.61, possibly early in January, I thought, and I always recommend maybe waiting for a 7.61 if you can, and then I think we'll broadly follow, roughly 3 months throughout the year. The other thing I think is worth noting, so and I think it only applies to possibly 2, maybe 3 clients who are on pre-release 7. That will move into extended support, sometimes some point towards the middle of next year. So we'll be discussing that with the 2 or 3 clients in that bucket. For all of you who are on release 7 and happy release 7, you probably got from today at least 2 years if you want to stay on release 7. There's no massive expediency to upgrade, but Teresa and her team will obviously be encouraging people to keep reasonably current. And from my perspective, I think if you just look at it from a change perspective, then actually lots of little plus ones is a lot less impactful to your user base than maybe big bangs every year, 18 months or whatever the period is. Yeah. So that's timeline. Going to spend a little bit of time on what's in release 7.6, and actually we did release 7.51, 7.52, 7.53. So there's been lots of incrementals after release 7.5, but broadly 57 enhancements, which is averaging just under 1 a day actually now, which is no bad thing, I don't think. 140 defects, which is probably averaging well above a day. Petter always asks me the question: is your knowledge base in line with your current release? And I'd say very, very close now. We caught up. Andre, I know he's on the call. Andre's done a spectacular job catching up with the backlog in terms of our knowledge base. There are obviously areas where we've looked at it and go, actually, it could be better, or you've looked at it and go, actually, that knowledge base article doesn't tell me everything I want. There is a comment button on every article. I use it myself, so if I don't think it's quite good enough, or I don't quite understand it, and it's a big platform now, so not everyone understands everything, then I'll add a comment, and Andre picks those things up really quickly, right? So feel free to find things on the knowledge base. Obviously, feel free to contact us if you don't think there's enough, or just comment it, and Andre will pick up that feedback really quickly, and then maybe someone will get in touch with you and help you with your particular issue. Yeah. So of the whatever, I think we in the delta between 7.5, whatever it was, 4 and release 7.6, I think we released about 20 features. I'm going to pick on about 4 of those. So whoops, let's see how we go on those. Right, if you bear with me for 1 second. Okay, ShareDo. Right, so the first thing you're going to see, and this is only for people, I think, with the modeler permission, might be the admin permission, but basically not your end users. When you upgrade 7.6, and indeed every upgrade you get from that point, you're going to see this slightly annoying message in the bottom right-hand corner. Yeah. And broadly, what this is saying is we want to upgrade your solution, or we think there are things in your solution that aren't particularly good and maybe need looking at based on a variety of routines that run in the background. Please have a look, right? And hence, I don't know, for people who are familiar, you'd have seen warnings in the workflow screen previously. You would have gone here and it was said, oh, there's lots of issues up here. You would have gone to, let me duplicate my screen. You would have gone to the document admin area and you would have seen a V7 upgrade page. And I guess since there's constant evergreen activity going on in the platform, rather than splattering it everywhere, it's now in this single place called Modular Assistant. In 7.6 hasn't got a lot going on, right? But in 7.7 there's a load of things, and as we move towards, well, we're sort of broadly starting to call it UX version 2, stroke form builder version 2. Basically, we'll be upgrading a load of the aspects. So you're going to see a lot of activity in here. And broadly, when you see it, you've got the opportunity to import some configuration. So if you upgraded your UAT, you can import your configuration from vNext and then basically run these jobs, and they'll find nothing because you fixed them in your previous environment. Otherwise, you press run pending jobs. I'm not going to do this on this course. It'll take a little while. So the three jobs that are going, we're going to rerun the V7 document template upgrade just to double check it. That will basically go through your templates. We're going to run a document template legacy tags upgrade. What does that mean? So for people who've been using legacy tag loaders, and they are getting depreciated by the time we reach release 8, then the system will go through every template, work out if they're actually being used, and turn them off on a template by template basis if they're not being used. Yeah. What's that? Why are we doing that? Simply put, legacy tag loaders are now starting to impact the performance of lots of documents. And ultimately, if you turn them off, and you could do that manually, right? Then the performance of complex documents can go down from 20 seconds to about 6 seconds, right? You can do it manually. Lots of clients have 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 templates. This will go through and do it for you. And if you're not using any legacy tags, we'll just take it out of the solution, right? Yeah, you'll see a lot more of these. This is just the start of Modular Assistant. Okay. I will show you a couple of bits more, right? So I'm going to go and I'll duplicate my tab again. Go to the front end. And I'm going to play around with a debt matter. Maybe because I was doing a bit of debt yesterday. So we do some debt recovery. I'll do some business debt. This is really annoying, this thing. It's the same as when you don't, it's the same annoying reminder you get when you don't link your Office 365 accounts and all that good sort of stuff. I'll just highlight the new participant picker here. and I'm going to look at it in a couple of different ways, right? So I can type here and go mega, and I can add a reference, Bob. So I'll show you a couple more examples of this, then we'll look at what the system, how the system's been upgraded in this respect. Yeah, that's broadly similar behavior. I go and type a search for defendant, and I can go, or I can go and say, hey, it's Bob over there. I might have a form builder. This is a form builder here, and I can go and search for a guarantee of, I know, Jane. We've got Jane, yeah, cool. Support. You get the general idea. So broadly, what we've done behind the scenes is there are a variety of different pickers. For those who understand ShareDo config quite well, there's like a custom aspect up here. So behind the scenes, what's happened is we basically upgraded a lot of those to use a single control with a lot more rich functionality. So if I go into that instruction work type I was on, it's lost the what was, I think, called the instruction B2B details aspect, and it's replaced it with this new ODS entity picker. Indeed, it will have done that across the application in lots of places where there are similar application pickers, and hopefully address some of the UX issues that are associated with that. So as far as an end user is concerned, dead easy to interact with ODS entities, and that control will keep getting enhanced. If we were to look at the form builder that's on there, which I think is this one, you now get an additional snippet called ODS Entity Picker, which provides proper inline form support. And I guess that's been one of the things that's let down our, there's been a few things that's let down Form Builder, but this was one of the bigger gaps, I think. I'll just touch on one more thing, and I'll talk about the direction of travel with a lot of these controls. So if I was to go, let me just, actually, I'll tell you what I'll do. Here's one I prepared earlier on this. If I was to go into this instruction, we've sort of had this control for a while, which I think is called a multi-form aggregator or something like that. That's had a few little bits of UX enhancement to enable you to do better things. Broadly, if I look forward to 2024, to a certain degree, a lot of these are sort of semi-tactical fixes to address little bits of usability. We've started work in earnest on UX version 2, Form Builder version 2. So I'd like to think that I'll start showing on the next one of these roadmap updates or the user groups, I'll start to show the new UX and the new Form Builder stuff. So these are probably the last sort of little tactical changes to on the old sort of engine, I suppose, more than anything. Okay, so that's participant picker. While I'm in this sort of debt recovery matter, I'll just pick on another sort of, enabling you to choose the UX. You've had the menu designer for a long time, but the blade menu's been a bit tricky to configure. So when you go into your blade menu, you'll see, when you go into your menu designer, you'll see a new category called blade ribbon, which broadly corresponds to what you see on the blade here. So ultimately I've got 4 sections, and I've got a phase provider there, a prep doc, and a view portal, and what have you. But I can, if I want to, add anything else I want in there. So let me just find something in here, browse with available templates, and I'll call this browse file. Save that. I don't think I need to bust my cache. I need to. I needed to bust my cache. That classic little pause to bust the cache. So now I've got the browse button on there, and then I think we demoed this widget possibly last time, maybe the time before, and I can go and say, hey, what documents I want to pair? There's my prep doc, or there's my B2B acknowledgement. Go and have a look at it, right? But generally, you've got a lot more control, and I think we're starting to produce more and more guidance around best practice usability. I think we talk a lot about things like page for a purpose and stuff like that, right? But so I think better control plus a better eye for usability ultimately is going to make your users happier. Yeah. Okay, so that's extended menu editor. Yeah, thanks, Andre. Andre's well and truly ahead now. I'll touch very quickly. I think we demoed a bit of this previously in terms of the new expressions engine. It has got super sophisticated now. So we introduced 1,000,001 new functions, better support for calculated lists, better support for list aggregation, and also a lot more meaningful syntax that goes with creating these expressions. So you can write it in a lot better way. And also I've noticed the other day a little bit, potentially a little bit of IntelliSense as well. So yeah, expressions are super sophisticated, a lot more functions, a little bit of usability. It's now a lot easier to write them, a lot easier to debug them, and run debugging expressions on essentially really complex expressions. So hopefully that'll be good for everyone. Whoops. And I guess I was chatting to Yaron a few days ago about wondering where hard will get to next, because certainly some clients who are on the call today who are constantly pushing the limits of what we can achieve. We think we're now ahead of you, but we're interested to know what hard's going to look like in this area. I put a load of rubbish in there, didn't I? What hard's going to look like in this area at some point in the future. I'll just highlight one more thing. You can now create reusable functions in this area as well. So I think we ship with one which takes an array of participants and does use sort of standard legal naming with Bob, Jane and Sue. Yeah. But you can create your own functions, which again makes these expressions, rather than copying all of the standard blocks around all the expression, makes it a lot easier. Yeah. So this stuff's getting quite advanced. I suspect across our user base, a lot of this functionality will only get used by a few people, but it is available and is super powerful for those who need to use it. Yeah. I think that's it on 7.6. As I say, there's let's see where we go back to. We go back. There's a load of other bits and pieces. I missed one bit I wanted to show you. As users who are configuring a lot of ShareDo, it has been quite opaque as to what has changed or what you are changing. I'm actually quite excited about this. So we have been auditing that stuff for a while, right? But haven't really been surfacing it very well. So now when I do an export, and it's going to be a bit more ubiquitous across the application in 7.7, I've got this new filters panel. Previously, it was just a text search. And I can say, hey, what's been updated by Ben? And you can see I've updated a calculated field. I've updated instruction details. This is me just doing a bit of demo prep. I've updated the instruction portal. And indeed, I can say actually what's been updated from the 11th and do that. So that's a lot better picking of changes, either by a particular pod or a particular person in a particular time frame. And when you create a new export, you can then hence do deltas a lot better. There's still a little bit of work to come across in this world. Thanks, Luke. It's going to make people's life a lot easier. Yeah, a little bit more enhancements in this area, but we're I think finally, and it's been a long tail of issues in import-exporter, it feels sort of there or thereabouts to me. Okay, I think that's probably, how are we doing? 9:30. That's probably about enough on demoware. Is there anything else that's worth picking out in here? Probably not. Right. Release notes will be published when we finally go out of a release candidate. Hopefully this week. It might be next week, and it could be early Jan. It's all about quality. Yeah. Okay. Right. I'll pause for breath. Have a little glass of water. Resist this temptation to vape on a user group, and carry on with the next slide. Okay, just want to spend a few minutes talking about requesting enhancements, and I appreciate for some people that can be frustrating when you've got something that's super important. It's a constant battle to manage the high priority things of now with the strategic things of the future. And I think we do an all right job, but hey, it's never perfect, right? Some people are very vociferous about requesting enhancements, and that's great, right? Some people don't really request any of them at all, right? And that may mean you're just super happy, or actually got everything you need, or it means you just don't know how to do this, right? So I just wanted to highlight, we really appreciate that feedback, both positive and negative. And learn from it, and hence we all benefit, right? So you can request via your implementation consultant. So if you're still in project mode and something's not quite there, then request via your implementation consultant. Bear in mind, we do have a release cadence. So if you identify something and you take a long time to request it, then it's unlikely to get there in a reasonable time frame. Yeah. You can do it by the service desk. You can do it by your customer success manager. You can email me, right? I don't mind, that's fine. Yeah. I don't want too many emails, if I'm honest, because I don't look at it. As opposed to know me, I don't look at my email box very often. Or we're going to do a couple of surveys on this forum, I think. So I don't quite, if I'm honest, don't quite know how that works, but apparently various surveys should pop up. Is that right, Teresa?
Yeah. So cool. Should we do the first one now? So I've got 3 questions that I'm going to hijack Ben's call with. So the first one I'm going to ask now before Ben kind of completes the rest of his demonstration. And it's based around the product today. So in a minute, I'm going to press launch. Now, I have to tell you, the first time I've done this, I've run many tests, so I'm pretty sure it's going to work. But I'm going to hit launch. So you're going to see a pop up in a minute asking you a question. And that's really around the product as it is today. So if you can just put in any quick thought that you've got, hit submit, and I'll go away and I can collate those results. Right, I'm going to hit launch. Okay, so you should all now have a question popped up. Is that right? Can you all see in the current product, is there anything you particularly like, or are there things that you think need some fine tuning? Now, I've just kind of phrased that question, but obviously, if you think you can pretty much put anything in there that you want about our product today. So really we can kind of go away, and that should hopefully help shape the roadmap in the future. So we'll just give you a few minutes to do that.
Meanwhile, I'll crack on, right? And we'll take it forward a bit further. Right, okay, where are we going next? Okay, yeah, just want to spend a bit of time on solution accelerators, right? As I say right at the start, we consider the products will have 3 key elements: the core case management platform, the legal and insurance elements, extensions to that platform, and finally the sort of solution accelerators. So this is a constant stream of activity, and I'd be lying to say all of these, you know, they accelerate you at different levels. I think would be better. Some are more mature than others, but regardless, they all provide good ways of copying stuff, right? I mean, if most people's implementations of work types are fundamentally quite similar. So even if you want to go off and do your own thing, feel free to log on to one of our environments where these are installed, have a look how we've done it, borrow good ideas, right? We all get better through sharing. Yeah. So there's green is ones that are sort of in flight to a greater or lesser degree. The sort of pinky brand color that we've inherited in the last rebrand is stuff that's going to come through very shortly in 2024. So yeah, we're doing a bit on part A, a lot of work on Scottish summary ordering, simple type stuff, a lot of work on Australian, I think it's called civil procedure, but I might be wrong. And then we're going to do some work in New Zealand as well on the proceeding types there. Been working on costs on and off for a while now. That's slowly getting there, and we're doing quite a lot of work in corporate, and I'll talk about that in a little while. And then there's still some work to be done in sort of B2C side of employment disputes. So the corporate side is fine if you're a defendant, but the B2C side of that. And I guess we've done a reasonable amount of work in insurance, but we're just rolling out different classes of business. So casualty, property, commercial, marine, pet, maybe in the sort of insurance stuff bit by bit. Yeah, I just really wanted to touch on that. We're still, I don't think we're perfect about sharing that information. If you want to access demo one, then just ask, right? It's your environment as much as ours, yeah. And hopefully I'll talk about the experience environment next time, which I promised about 6 months ago, and we still haven't quite got that nailed yet, which will be a better environment for you guys to share. Okay, right. Yeah, this is the candidate roadmap for 2024. I think it's quite, there's some super exciting. I've just talked about major features. I'm going to try and not be too verbose on this because reading it all out would be considerably dull, right? I'll maybe touch on 7.7. I mean, all that sort of stuff planned, a lot of it's in flight, actually lots in test already. And then, as you see over time, you know, broadly, we don't plan too far ahead because things will change, new priorities will come along. So there's still stuff to be filled up there. Indeed, some stuff might slip from 7.7 to 8 or whatever it might be. Yeah. Touching on a few things that will definitely be in 7.7. I've done a couple of demos over Business Rules version 2. We've actually expanded. It didn't make 7.6. It wasn't quite the bar we needed it to be, and also there's quite a lot of fundamental changes. So I'm not going to re-demo that stuff, but we've taken that same engine. We're going to be doing enhancing the whole of allocation rules. So allocation rules can take it so far, but actually they're quite when you're doing really complicated approval-y type things, particularly with competency driven or authority level driven type approvals, they come a little bit short. So allocation rules gets the same engine. We've also completely redone our aspect display rules. They also use the same engine, so you've got a lot more sophistication in terms of showing and hiding different aspects, so personalizing your blades. That same engine also gets used in your portal display targeting. So I'll maybe highlight that. Actually, that's probably worth just spending a second on. Oops, how do I go back? So for those who are familiar, have I got a work type here? And I really wanted to get this in for 7.6, but hey, that's live. So let's go back to our debt instruction, which I was having a look at yesterday. Actually, we'll open up the portal. I'm sure most people are familiar. I can show and hide. There goes my annoying message. Basically, I can show and hide pages or portals or indeed widgets based on these criteria. That's okay, but you're constantly butting against it, right? So all of that gets replaced with business rules. So you can say only show this page or this widget if the reserves are greater than £5,000, right? Or if someone's set a particular fraud flag, I want to show something. Yeah. So a lot more control, a lot more personalization, and hence a lot better ability to target exactly the right information at your users at the right time. Hey, and they don't, it looks less cluttered and all that good stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that stuff is I mean, most of it's in test at the moment. That might come out as a point release. If not, it will be in 7.7 some point, hopefully, sort of mid to late Q1. There's always, I'll finish off Modeler while we're here. There's always new workload blocks, right, and enhancements to workload blocks. So I'm not going to name those, but there's usually like every release, like I don't know, half a dozen blocks or enhancements that are coming out, and obviously you guys can write your own. We're doing some work on connections. I don't know if anyone from Hall and Wilcox is on, but I'm really sorry it's taken so long about the synchronization stuff. There have been some dependencies there. That will get done. And then in the top banner, hopefully quite a few good UX features. We're always optimizing the platform. So you see these performance buckets that come on. For the clients who are vociferous about this, it's really appreciated, right? Is the right word or not? But it sounds though it's a bad thing, but actually I really appreciate it. So people going, hey, this bit's too slow, right? So we always prioritizing them and always getting those better and always finding ways to make things faster. Yeah. Actually, one of the bigger things in UX version 2 is fundamentally making blades right a load faster. Yeah, even though we can tweak them, they're still too slow in my opinion. Right. Radar is going to be good. Chronology gets a load of functional enhancements to it. List views get a load of end user features, saving queries, filtering, better management of lists and all of that good stuff, right? I'm not gonna I'm going to talk about Outlook separately, but broadly we call them apps, right? So and they actually follow a different release cadence. So they're proper SaaS products. So you all get the same version of Outlook, you all get the same version of Word plugin, you all get the same version of the mobile app framework, right? And they actually share a lot of common code base. Indeed, all of that code is on GitHub. If you want to take what we've done in the mobile development framework and build your own mobile app, it's all there for you guys, right? So broadly in that apps strand, and I'm hoping that teams will move a bit in. It's the same code base. It's a lot of the same functionality actually across all of them, but we've been working on the Outlook plugin for a little while now. I'll show you that hopefully in a minute. We're going to separate the current Word plugin into a template author plugin and a content author plugin. The content authoring side is not as strong as I'd like it to be, so that starts to get enhanced shortly. And the Teams plugin as well is going to share a lot of that functionality. The only thing I'd say about these is, although I put them in releases, they don't actually follow the same release cadence. So we can release these whenever we want. So nominally they're going to slot into these buckets, but if they might come out sooner or later than those. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll maybe speak for a couple of minutes on UX version 2, Form Builder version 2. Yeah, our prep doc stuff, right? the UX of that is starting to get really clunky. It needs an overhaul. Emails plainly needs an overhaul. Blades need an overhaul. And we're going to wrap all of those up into sort of UX version 2, which is the foundation of Form Builder version 2. So I'm hoping that I'll start to demo that stuff reasonably soon, and hope to incrementally refresh a lot of these bits with fundamentally have a better usability for your end clients, and some performance improvements, and ultimately better management of data dictionary alongside data composer under the hood. So I'm not going to spend any longer on that because I'm not quite ready to demo that. Yeah, all good. Okay, I think that's about it. I am going to keep to an hour by the looks of things, which is good as well. I'll pick on a couple more things. So the major bits for next year are the apps piece, UX Form Builder version 2, repo version 2, which is all about better management of ShareDo's interactions between Office 365 or iManage or NetDocs, and better metadata management, better usability in that world. And the final piece, which I actually shifted back a little bit, is around security simplification. So making it easier to configure security in ShareDo. So those are sort of the big ticket items. Although we're going to try and not make them big ticket items, they'll get incrementally released over the course of 2024. Okay. Any questions? All good. Where are we going next? All right, yeah, I've spoken about this already. Definitely going to be under an hour, which is brilliant. Yeah, so mobile development framework, I think we did our second version of that. Came out about middle of 7.5, 7.55, something like that. That's there. It's on GitHub. There are example apps. It's there for you if you want to take it forward. Because my opinion about mobile apps is a generic ShareDo mobile app is pretty much no good to man or beast. There's too much functionality in ShareDo. Use case specific mobile apps are, on the other hand, very useful. So out in the wilds, there's people who've done things like apps for engineers to report incidents and stuff like that, right? So that's available for you guys. Chat to your customer success manager if you need more info. And as I say, we're going to roll out a load of the other bits and pieces. I was going to do a quick demo of Outlook.
So Ben, can I just interject you again then? So just before you go into detail, so is that that's your complete overview done, yeah? So can I jump in with a quick question here? So I'm going to close the last poll. And I'm now going to launch another poll. So you should, if it works as well as last time, see pop up on your screen. So what we're asking this time is if there is anything that Ben hasn't mentioned that's actually on the roadmap that you think, either would benefit you, would benefit everybody, or just generally that you think we should build, then write your answers and let us know, any particular information about it as well. There you go, Ben, you can carry on.
Thank you, Teresa. We're going to do refresh of UX of email within the app, but this is the current working version of the Outlook plugin. It's a modern Outlook plugin. What does that mean? It means it's dead easy to install. There are a few settings within ShareDo to govern how it's used and what users can use it. So you can turn it on and off for groups of users within your tenant. But I'm not going to spend very long on it. But broadly, there's a quick search to go and find a matter. It will then manage the various attachments. You can file it against whatever it might be. You can do so limited screen real estate. You can do a quick time recording off the back of an email or a quick follow-up task against the email. You can manage the synchronization of contact records between Outlook and ShareDo at a case level. And you'll be able to use the email templating functionality directly within Outlook. So if you've got a super sophisticated piece of content, you can wrap those two things in. I'm sure, I don't know if Sam's on the call, who always does the co-pilot bit of chat at this point. I think it's interesting, co-pilot. Hey, I mean, I'll just give you my view on it, right? We're in the classic Gartner hype cycle. We're sort of getting close to the top, I think, and then there will be a crash, and then in whatever period of time we'll start to see some of the proper use cases and realization of benefits coming out. So I think and it's interesting because it's going to start to overlap with some of this stuff, particularly in sort of generating content. I mean, I think in the short term, obviously that people on Office 365, both their email and their documents, right? Copilot is starting to yield some benefits, maybe. For those who want to iManage, I guess you've probably got 2 years to wait, right? By which time it would have done the trough of disillusionment and started to come out the other side. We've done some initial playing around. I forget what the word is called. There's some Microsoft buzzword for basically adapter from Copilot to your case data. I haven't, when I've been playing around with Copilot, I haven't seen it yield massive productivity benefits. But in this whole area, and actually we should have asked how many law firms are going to increase their Office license from whatever 15 quid a user per month to whatever 45 or something like that. Be interesting as we start to see more adoption of Copilot and generative stuff, the engineering effort to expose, subject to your permissions, expose your ShareDo data in addition to your documents, which will just always be exposed to Copilot, is actually not that big. So as you're learning, as we go through the pit of disillusionment and come out on the other side, as with any new pieces of tech, right? Then just keep in contact, because I think it's relatively trivial to add ShareDo data to it. And there will be some overlap with some of these plugins, right? And there will be overlap with how you're doing content blocks and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah. Cool. Okay. That is all good. I won't show any more Outlook stuff. Loads of other features and functionality. And broadly, a lot of that stuff is the same as the mobile development framework, similar sort of screen real estate. Indeed, in the new version of the Word plugin for content authors, a lot of that is a lot of the same functionality as well. Right? But usability is quite hard to get right on that stuff. So yeah, that's where we're up to in that world. I'm gonna just finish off talking about machine learning. So I talked about this, maybe the last one. We've done quite a lot of work on this now. I think if I track back to what I think the problem statement is, ShareDo produces a huge amount of information, which we're all struggling to take advantage of. That's problem number one. Problem number two is very few firms that are, and we only work with the larger firms, right? But nevertheless, very few firms have the appetite to, or perhaps the skills to employ data scientists and really get under the hood and understand how things like Azure ML and all of their libraries work, right? So we've got a problem statement, which is we want to take advantage of all this rich data and we're struggling. And two is that, maybe we're going to struggle to leverage this technology in its current form. So that's our problem statement. I think we've done a lot of work. It's not nailed yet. I'm happy on all the use cases. So I'm happy. So yeah, go into reserves. It should be recommending reserves on past performance. It should be classifying work items based on their content to a certain degree. So I use a task, it's classifying, and hence it's a lot better filterable in the chronology. We should be recommending how long we think a piece of work is taking based on past performance and all of that sort of stuff. So our direction of travel here is broadly to put machine learning in this black box with the ability for you to extend it out to Azure Machine Learning if you want to. So broadly, you'll turn it on. It will recommend a couple of algorithms to you, and they are just algorithms, nothing fancy going on there. It will train it on your data. Some people's data is good enough, some people's isn't, right? And then within the application, will offer you a number of different hooks. So you can turn it on very quickly for in particular places in the application. So you go to your phase model, you say, actually, I'd like to recommend the phase duration via this model. I would like to recommend allocation rules or budgets via this model. Yeah. So hopefully, and there's a reasonable amount of engineering to go on supporting this. The idea would be, and I can't remember which client articulated it really well, but everyone's got the same use cases, right? Which is whether you're claimant or defendant or real estate or whatever, it doesn't matter. Fundamentally, there's probably 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 questions that you might ask your clients that will have a strong correlation either to reserves, to schedule of loss, or to fees potentially, right? And rather than making that journey implementing that really fragmented, we're going to aim to make that super quick for you to execute. Will it be the most sophisticated correlation model known to mankind? No, but looking across everyone's data, we're not. Although we produce a decent amount of data, we're not, as a general cohort, we're not. I don't think we're that sophisticated. So in the nicest possible way, if you want to get super sophisticated, you want to go Azure machine learning crazy, you want to employ data scientists left, right, and centre, we're still going to have all the hooks to enable you to do that stuff, right? So I'll definitely be showing this over the course of 2024 as we move forward. Indeed, there's a couple of foundation pieces which are doing to support things like easier creation of bordereaux for insurance clients and general sort of data exports, which I'll start to show as well. All good. I think, Teresa, that's about all I had. Unless anyone's got any specific questions, I don't know if there's anything you want to feedback from polls so far, or are you all good?
So I think a couple of big ticket items. So the one thing that got mentioned a few times on the what wasn't on the roadmap is PMS. So yeah, I don't know if that's from one particular client or that's something that we're going to be looking at further down the line.
I'll spend a couple of minutes on that. Yeah, we're not going to build a PMS. How do I go back? But I think it's really interesting. Like if you look at from an enterprise architecture perspective, you look at where your operational system, ShareDo, and your CRM system, whatever it might be, and your finance system, where you typically see those lines drawn, and they are a bit grey, right? It's only legal that draw the lines where they do, and hence, in terms of the finance functionality, we're looking to continue. I mean, there's lots of stuff around time to fees to invoices, payments to invoices. We're going to push ShareDo's finance functionality into what would traditionally be a PMS, but towards where you would expect it to stop at where you would normally put an ERP, right? So we won't do bank reconciliation. We won't do. We should be able to produce rich invoices, but won't necessarily do cash collection. So yeah, so that's where our direction of travel, and there'll be lots of stuff coming out in 2024 for that. It's interesting. I'm chatting to one of the vendors in that respect anyway, in the PMS world. So that's PMS. They'll be stuck in the out.
So I think a couple of the things that are in the product today, I think you've addressed as part of the kind of next coming few releases, and that's around the Outlook integration. So I don't really think there's any big surprise there. I think we knew that, there was still quite a lot of work to do in that area.
Email needs a proper looking at. I appreciate that, and I really appreciate people who are feeding back in various different ways. That's acknowledged. And
one quite surprising thing that'll make you happy, Ben, is somebody put, I do like the product, and form building is great once you get used to it. It's great.
I tell you what, though, right? I don't know. I'm not 100% certain because I'm not clear what. I haven't really looked at what they've done yet, if I'm honest. I would like to think in the same way that Workflow Modeler, you can, if you really need to, you can. You want to do something super sophisticated, you can write script, but Form Builder is pretty damn quick, right? So the early bits I've seen of the visual modeler stuff, it's going to be really slow to configure. So I'd like to think we might support both. I don't know. I don't know. Right.
And I guess the last thing I'll pull out from the things that you didn't show is mentioned in the last question. It would be great to be able to open Excel documents in Matters, but this may be covered in the forthcoming improvements with integration with Office 365.
I don't know. Feel free to email me. Right? I don't. It doesn't ring a bell. And actually, I know one thing we're doing. Actually, PrepDoc is supporting PDF. I don't know if it's on that list. That's reasonably soon. Oh yeah, DocGen PDF forms down here. But yeah, just ping me an email. I mean, without any commitment, but I'm always interested. And if it's ping me an email. Let me know what you need.
Yeah, no, that's good. So I think there was one that just said document tagging, but I think that is going to be covered. So that's it. So what I'll do is I might take a few of the things from what's in the product today. Some quite positive things in there. It's quite nice. So I'll take some of those and I'll feed those back. And I guess maybe just the last one that I'll just launch. If you're done, Ben, I'll just launch it and leave it. Is this one. Okay, so this is looking for some positives that we can feed back to Tony to really encourage him to get that release out there. And it's what items on the roadmap did you find most exciting? Or alternatively, were there any items that you found less useful to your organisation? Not to say they're not going to be useful, but just to your specific organisation. And then that'll help us kind of jig things around a little bit. So I'll put that one on there and I will leave that up. So hopefully everybody can see that.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'd like to maybe to wrap up. Well, firstly, thanks for all of your innovation, right? Because it's what drives it forward for everyone. Ideas are always appreciated, and we all benefit from them. I think the backlog. I can't remember the last time I spoke. I'm sure it was about 250, but I should have kept a note. And pull some stats out. I think the backlog's about 210 now, something like that. So we're keeping up with demand. This is not encouraging like loads of feature enhancements, although that's still appreciated. Which implies we're about a year behind, on average, from idea, assuming it gets accepted through to delivery. Some get fast tracked, some get forward tracked, and I'd like to see that number come down over time as we get more as the team grows and all that sort of stuff. But more than anything, I wish everyone a very I'm going to be doing Americanism. Wish everyone a very happy holidays, and hope you all get to spend time with your families, and see you all in the new year. Yeah, cool.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks
Take care, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.